and joining us on the Book Talk segment today, great to welcome Marc Elliot, New York Times best-selling author. He's written so many books about pop culture and great biographies. He had a new one out about Michael Douglas, the actor, called Michael Douglas, a biography. Marc Elliot joined us by telephone today. And Marc, I believe we talked a couple of years ago. If it wasn't the Jimmy Stewart book, I think it was the Cary Grant book. But good to talk to you again.
That's right. Good to talk to you, too.
Yeah, I had a chance to read through the book on Michael Douglas. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask you, when you decide to do a biography of, obviously it has to be a person alive, but how do you go about it? Do you call them first, or what do you do?
I usually do the research first, and then try to connect with the subjects and let them have their input. To me, it's historical. All this biography is mainly historical, and you want as much objectivity as you can. When I've done books with people, obviously we have both our names on it, like James Brown and Barry White. Those are memoirs.
Right.
Biography is really a story of a subject, and when you do film, I like to put them in the context of their films and how their films relate to their real-life character.
Great legacy, of course, with Michael Douglas and, of course, Kirk Douglas. You got that part of the story as well. And Michael Douglas having to try and carve out his own niche. I've seen interviews where he's talked about he tried purposely earlier in his career not to take parts which were similar to his dad. So, you know, that kind of high-energy, intense style. Of course, Michael Douglas went into that later on, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Earlier in his career, he tried to kind of distance himself, didn't he?
Well, I think he's a little afraid of competing with Spartacus.
Sure.
You know, they're really two different types of actors. Kirk Douglas was a romantic action hero, very big with the ladies, always, in film, on film, and off film. And in films like The Vikings, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Spartacus, these are, and a ton of Westerns, which were big at the time. Michael is a different type of actor. He's much more gentle. He rarely does a film where there's a fist fight, almost never. He's a great producer. He did Cuckoo's Nest and The China Syndrome, among his more celebrated films. And, you know, more of an offbeat lover, like the Basic Instinct and Fatal Attraction. And then he very wisely was able to shift into character acting and did Wall Street, which won him his first acting Oscar. So the two, Michael was probably the more cerebral of the two on screen. I can't conceive of Michael playing Vincent van Gogh, but I can't conceive of Kirk Douglas being in Fatal Attraction. So they're similar, yeah, but they're different. And, you know, the show business is the only industry where a father doesn't want his son to join the firm. You know, lawyers love to have their sons become partners, doctors turn over the practices. In film, actors hate to give up anything, especially to children, for fear that their sons will outshine them or be more famous than them. It's a crazy business that way, and people do things and say things that you don't really hear in other industries.
You talk about it in the book. There's very few father-son actors that really have kind of equaled. I guess Jeff Bridges and
Right.
Bo Bridges with Lloyd, I guess, is probably the closest to Michael and Kirk, right?
Right. But if you look at, let's say, Bob Dylan and Bob Dylan's son, that also resonates with the Douglases because you've never seen Bob Dylan on stage with Jacob. I don't think ever. And you never hear them mentioned together. It's very difficult for Jacob Dylan to carve out a career because of the shadow that hangs over him. And Michael had that same shadow. And so he, I think, wisely tried not to compete too much with that enormous granite Kirk Douglas that stood in his own way. So it's difficult. Talk about the Bridges boys. Their father was a wonderful guy, Lloyd Bridges, but not that big a star.
Mm-hmm.
High Noon is probably the biggest film he made until the airport movies, and that great little TV show he had. But he wasn't on the level of fame of Kirk Douglas. So the journey to overcome is not that difficult. And Lloyd Bridges was much closer to his sons when they were children. They all loved each other. Lloyd Bridges actually brought the two boys into show business when he was doing the TV show.
Right.
That's not Kirk. Kirk was not that kind of loving father.
Yeah, Kirk and Michael's mother had divorced, and then Michael basically grew up in a different part of the country for the most part, didn't he? So it was a distant relationship. Yeah, interesting.
I mean, Kirk was living in L.A. and Michael was living in Connecticut, and when they go to school, someone would say, "My father's a doctor. What does your father do?" "My father's a lawyer. What does your father do?" "My father's Spartacus."
I know we have limited time today. Just a couple of quick points. You mentioned Cuckoo's Nest, which Kirk Douglas actually owned the rights to that as a Broadway play, which flopped, basically. I didn't realize it was produced during the whole Kennedy thing, which hurt it on top of that. But Michael took that and made it into the film, and I guess there's some rivalry there as far as Kirk wanted to play the Jack Nicholson role, which he eventually got, and he never, I guess there's still a little, maybe not now, but there was some animosity there, wasn't there?
I think maybe still.
Still, really?
Michael, Kirk played that role on Broadway,
right.
Murphy, and the only reason he even bought the rights and did it on Broadway was so that eventually it would be a movie. And so when he let his son take over after a decade of not being able to get it made, he felt betrayed that they all thought he was too old to play the role and gave it to Nicholson, which won an Oscar for Nicholson. And don't forget, Kirk never won an Oscar.
Right, which is hard to believe when you look at his body of work.
Right.
Yeah. A couple other things. Of course, Michael went on to television, Streets of San Francisco, then, like you said, the great string of movies, not only as a actor but a producer, and then those kind of man in trouble movies with Basic Instinct and Fatal Attraction. Of course, Wall Street was probably his best-known character, and then he also married one of the hottest women actresses with Catherine Zeta-Jones. So he's had a great life that way, but now he's undergoing some health issues. How is he doing today, Mark? Do you know? Or?
Better. He's back to work. He had stage 4 cancer.
Right.
Stage 4 is difficult to overcome. He had that radiation treatment, but radiation in this cancer you can only have once. So if it comes back, and cancer has a way, it's an insidious disease of not giving up. It's a bad loser. It'll be much more difficult the second time around. But, he's a tough guy. He's got his father's survival genes. Kirk is walking around now with the effects of that stroke for, I think, almost 15 years.
Yeah.
Into his 90s. So I think Michael has a good shot.
Yeah, and he admitted, it was caused, he smoked and did have a drinking issue, so, he's not shying away from that, but I know he's working on a film about Liberace. That's the last I heard. I don't know if that's still in...
It's going to be on HBO, and then after that he's going to play a small role in a film about Reagan. Reagan is the character, but Reagan is not the main character in the film, and Michael is going to play Reagan.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating subject, and Michael Douglas, A Biography is the name of the book. We've been talking with Marc Elliot today. Mark, I know we could talk for an hour on this, but give out a website. People can get a hold of the book if they like to get a hold of you.
My website is marcelliot.net, and if you go to Google or any of those engines, they'll get you to me. I'm not the guy who sells flowers.
It's Eliot, just to spell the last name. Mark, good to talk to you again, and I'm sure we'll do it again when the next book comes out. Thanks for joining us.
I look forward to it.